We can go a bit faster. It's fine.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to bring the reference into here so I can show what I'm talking about. I was going to work on this. I think this is a pretty cool model to show off some basics. Fast is good. Yeah, good plan. Okay. So yeah, we're going to be modeling this. I'm basically going to teach you basically my thought process going through it, what I'm thinking, and how you can model similar things. So I guess the first thing is, how do I approach how the model looks? I'll break it down into parts. The first part, cylinder in the middle. So we'll build that. We're going to break it down into primitive shapes, which are the ones here, which is basically always cube, sphere, cylinder. So let's build the middle first. Scale right, it's a bit rounded in the middle. You can see the curve. Do this, and bevel it out. It only needs to be rough in the start, so this is fine. We'll get this shape next, which there's two of. This is basically the workflow for the first parts is just getting every primitive shape in early. Make sure it roughly resembles what we're doing. And this is the same with anything you're modeling. It's always just going to be the same. Get the big main shapes in first, and then you can start refining later. I'm not sure how experienced people in the chat are. If they know like the basic controls and shortcuts, let me know if there's anything you don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, we will just slowly build the shape up. Tips and tricks. Yeah, I think just blend them, of course. Nice. Keyboard shortcuts, yeah. That's one thing I'm I'm not actually very good at because I kind of taught myself. I've been doing Blender for 4 years, but I never really watched many tutorials. So yeah, I never really knew what the shortcuts are. But um, I wonder if I can put my following so far. Yeah, it looks beautiful, man. Exactly. So what we're going to be doing is, now that we've got the two main shapes, the next main thing is this square cut into the middle. Simple enough. We'll cut a little square into the middle. We'll do is down. What you do want to be wary of is make sure the geometry is always even. So each square should be kind of an even size. Just makes it just correct. Make sure it's clean. So we have a little hole in the middle. We'll scale it like this, so it's going to get flat. Simple. Next shape can be the cannon. So this is basically a cylinder. Oh, whoops. We want the high poly cylinder. Yeah, how long have you guys been using Blender? What kind of things do you like working? 6 months, nice. In the beginning, I was just working on. I used to download models and just pose them, kind of like scenes and stuff with them, but I never really modeled anything until like at least a year, probably. Oh, nice. So we see the cylinder. It starts pretty thick and it comes thinner, and then it will come out, back in. So starts thick, come in thinner, just scaling it, and it comes out. This one extrude along normals, but it's not. So we're gonna make it rough, and then we bevel it and clean it up later. This it's a bit more chunky. Bevel it, clean it up, so it comes in, back out. Comes in, comes back out, just slightly. And then this anymore. Clean it up with the bevels. I've been using Blender for 4 or 5 years, I think. But these, I think it's simple mechanically. It's just you have to know the mechanics of it and all the buttons to press. But the simple main thing is you just look at the shape. How does it look? In its basic sense is just a cylinder, right? But like I said, there's a fatter part here which we scaled up. There's another part here which we scaled up. A part here which cuts in, which we did. You just have to think of it in terms of primitive shape, and then you cut it down slowly, slowly, slowly. Like we started with just a cylinder for this, and now it's rounded and fat, and now we're going to break it up. Is our reference, you see, it's all like planks. So that's what we're going to do now. So we do that. So we'll just separate these, which we can use then to bevel them so they look like little planks. We can press the question mark key to make it, what's it called? Isolated. So this is really useful if you want to work around things. We're basically just trying to line these up, which it doesn't line up well, but it's fine. That'll do. Oh, really? We should line up better. It's better. Yeah. There we go. So I do every other one because when we separate these, now we're going to delete the top and the bottom. We those. So we're going to add thickness. This modifier, solidify. And sometimes what you want to do is F3 apply scale. So we'll make sure it is actually correct. Sometimes if you've been scaling it up and down, it'll be wrong. So that's important. Another tip, click on this one, shift click this one, copy to selected, then you don't have to go and type it all in again, and they're going to match. And then we get the bevel out. And it will curve in on itself like a plank. There we go. So we're looking closer again. Gonna make it make it a little bit more rounded. It's a bit pointy at the moment. Reference image. So originally it's from Clash Royale, but this is from I just found it on Pinterest. I was looking for something which has a few shapes in it that we can copy, but something also kind of simple, where it's like we're not doing too complex things here. They're all pretty primitive. There's a lot of different sections that we can work on. Usually something like this is pretty simple to work on, I'd say, as opposed to something with like spirals and all this. It should be reasonably easy. I think we can get it done within the hour. Yeah, exactly. The better reference you have, the easier it's going to be. So that's also another good tip. Another one I like to do is put this random mode on, and then this makes it a lot easier to see the geometry you're working with. So yeah, I'm going to separate the inside here because I don't want it to bevel. Let's just turn it off. Actually, yeah, we can mint it. I wasn't going to, but people want it. We can mint it as a drone, yeah. I'll show you how to set it up as a drone as well. That's a good idea. I wasn't going to texture it in this session though, because usually I'm using Substance Painter, which is an Adobe platform. You have to pay for it though, so I wanted to try to keep it open to be following. Although now that I've kind of just sped through it, I don't know if they will be able to follow as easy, but we'll see. So yeah, anyway, I kind of got carried away. Here we're going to start working on this cylinder shape, the smaller cylinder below. So we started with this cylinder and extruded long normals, that shape, but it's pretty thick, so we'll grab this. Again, we're just seeing how the shape is made and just copying it. So we can work on this propeller. So we've got just a cube to another cube to another. Very easy. So we're going to make sure it's lined up with the back, which is easy to do with this. Just set cursor to selected. And then when you spawn in a new mesh, it will spawn with the cursor. So the shape is pretty small, like this, towards the middle. So we want that in the middle perfectly. You can select this, cursor to selected, selection to cursor. So it's spawned right in the middle. With the texture part, what do you like to use for textures? I think if you do it in Blender, it's a lot harder than it is to do it with Substance Painter. I could technically show you guys some Substance Painter after this if you want. It's pretty easy to learn, I think. It's basically like drag and drop. You can just download preset materials from people. So it's really easy for beginners, or you can start getting a bit more advanced and make your own. One tip here is if I was to scale this, you see it's scaling also into itself, which I don't want. So I'm clicking S for scale, Shift Y, it scales everything except Y, and then it scales cleanly, going on itself. In the same sense, I could do S, Z, and it would only scale Z. So S Shift Y at the right size. Do it again, hit insertion, closer. It is on this one. Yeah, you can use anything. That would be good if you want to hand paint some textures. Substance Painter is pretty good if you want. Yeah, just like preset textures, but it's custom wrapped to your model still. It's a lot more simple, I think. But I used to paint all my textures through ZBrush, which is like a sculpting platform, sculpting software. Okay, so we're going to duplicate this, and this is another good tip. Here we can change where does the object pivot from. So if we pivot it from the 3D cursor, which is the center of this, R for rotate, Z for the Z axis, 120. Again, RZ minus 120. Now we know this is perfectly split. So here we are. We've done quite a lot already. Basically, I would like to look at it side by side and see what things are wrong. So we're missing the insert here. I to inset the face, E to extrude down, bevel this a little bit. You want to avoid, oh yeah. So when it's beveling wrong, it should be beveling better around this. So we're just gonna apply scale. Now it starts beveling. So these should be a lot thicker. This is a good one as well. This will change how does your gimbal basically. So right now it's on global, so it's always going to be looking at on the global axis. But normal, it will always look towards the direction that your object is facing. So that's pretty useful. So now I can go along perfectly smooth with the object. So we'll do that for this. This is a bit thick. So add some loop cuts into these and do the same thing that they have with some cuts into the wood like this, just so it's not so even. But yeah, again, we started with a perfect cube, and then we just go through again a little bit extra detail each time. Very simple. Okay, next we're going to do these bolts. So I'm going to do it with a cube because the geometry is better on a cube. Do this a lot easier. Or yeah, we'll do a cube. So what? So it's an octagon. Get this. We're going to scale Shift Y to not scale along the Y. This shape. But we want it to be curved, so we grab it now, bevel it in. Perfect. We're gonna put this here, cursor to selected, and we can right click origin 3D cursor. And now it's always gonna move from the back, which is useful for this step because we're gonna make it perfectly sit on this straight face. See, now it will perfectly sit, but it shouldn't be this big. We can scale again, local axis, very useful. If it was on global right now, and I was wanting to make it a bit thinner, it would be scaling wrong. But if it's on local, it'll come perfectly down how we want. So yeah, that's good. This should be centered. Go back to global. Make sure it's centered. So we'll line this up. Looks centered to me. Now, yeah, we can start adding these to the rest. I'll use a mirror to speed it up. So we're going to mirror it across this. on the Y, so it comes back here. This again, leave it on this one. So we're going to select this, and we're going to select this one as well, question mark, so it isolates them. Back to global, so we can rotate it easier. Make sure this is lined up. There we go. So now we've got all of these. I'm going to select them all. I'm going to press F3, convert to mesh. Sorry. Convert to mesh is going to basically apply the modifiers. So they're all applied. Control J, we're going to join them. We're going to then center the origin. And we're going to now be able to mirror it across this one along the z-axis, and it will all line up with the bottom. So there we go. Looking closer, some things are still off, like this one is too tall, or too not wide enough. So we can grab these. But that's the thing in the start, it's just about getting your shapes in early, and we can work on the details later. That's the most important. Something to remember. You don't need to be perfect, definitely not in the start. Yeah, hopefully so far you've learned some things. This is looking pretty close already. I'll then go over, so this kind of looks like it comes up a lot more from this line. It's coming up, and it's coming back, whereas my one kind of doesn't come up very much. So just things like this we have to keep an eye out for. I'll select this part. Up a bit more, or we should bring it simple. Grab these, scale it, Shift Z so it doesn't go along the Z axis. That should be a bit closer. Same thing on this one. And because this is mirrored, everything I'm doing to the top one is also happening to the bottom one. I haven't applied it yet. It's pretty good to not be destructive when you're modeling, which basically means not applying modifiers until right at the end. Usually in the end of a model, I'll have loads of modifiers on. You apply it right in the end, so you don't have to do everything I do to this one is already done to this one automatically. So it just saves you working. In the same sense, when I'm sculpting, I'll only ever really touch the right side, and I'll have a mirror modifier on, so it's always just building the left side for me, half the work. Whereas like 2D drawing, obviously, you have to draw both sides most of the time. Okay, yeah, so we've done most of the shape. We're going to now start working on the bottom, which is this shape. So this is obviously a cylinder, but the cylinder has a cut straight through the middle. So how are we going to do that? Add in a cylinder, set the orientation, bleed through the scale, we'll apply the scale. So we want to do the cut in the middle. So what we're going to do, 2 loop cuts, select the faces, extrude along normals, cut into the middle. But these are a lot thinner, so let's scale these in. That looks about right. These are also beveled, so Control B. Cool. So now it has a cylinder with a, like, again, just simple cylinder, a cylinder coming out of it. So all we have to do is keep doing cylinders. Very simple. If you break it down, it shouldn't be too hard. The cylinders like this. But maybe as a full model it looks complicated or something, but once you break it down into the shapes it's pretty sort of bevel this. But the bevel doesn't work, so scale. Set the face with eye, a bit smaller. Piece by piece, yeah, exactly. And this is mirrored onto the other side, I'd imagine. Like, so mirror along Z. I would prefer this a bit thicker, so we grab these. So now we're going to start building the pedal. This is a good thing with the more reference you can get, the better. So I know this is just simple again, just a cube with another cube attached. It's cut a little bit. So let's get the cube. Especially for something like this, very simple. I'm not going to do the legs and feet shoes today, I mean, because they're a little bit more complex. The shape is obviously not just a cube or a cylinder. So it requires a little bit more work for a beginner. And organic shapes. But still the principle is the same. When I'm approaching a sculpt, I will, yeah, basically look at the main shapes, do that, slowly cut into it. So we're building this pedal thing. It's a lot wider than this. So we need to do this. Give it a bit more space. So that happened here because if you ever run into this, it's because the orientations are not the same and it's local orientation. So if you did it on global, it's always going to move on the global. So that's fine. If you wondered why that ever happens. Put this back together. Back to local. Easier to work with. I think this is roughly the right shape. And again, it doesn't really matter because we can come back to it. Put the bevel on it. If you're doing something for Nifty Island, I would recommend not beveling stuff too much because obviously there's a limit to the amount of polygons you can use. We don't want to be putting 5 levels of bevel onto something for a game. Also, it's small, so you're not really going to be able to tell. So 2 or 3 is fine most of the time. So yeah, we're on this pedal now. We've done this, we've done this, we've done this. We now want to do this. So this is basically cube, but we see this side is flat, each corner. So simple enough shape, cube. These corners are cut in, so put a marker in the loop cut, select them, it'll be like put two and scale these faces. See, we've basically got that shape now. Okay. So I think it's like, oh yeah, we can do this as well. Select this one and then select to the one we want to copy into the orange thing. And we can copy single to select and it will copy the rotation. So instead of being here by hand to line all this up perfectly, that just perfectly lined them up. A simple little trick. Make sure they're aligned well. So it should be a bit wider. Draw thinner. So that looks about right. This is a bit long. But we should change to both sides. So we'll grab these. It looks roughly right. And we've already made one of these bolts, so we can just copy it. Obviously, we don't need more than one. So a good trick as well that you can press L on a bit of mesh in edit mode, and it will just select the whole bit of the mesh. And then Control I will select inverse of what you've already selected. Delete these. So now we just have one. Origin back to the center of the mass. I want to put a bolt here. So I'm going to try to line these up. The orientation is wrong. Let's just grab one again quickly. L, Control I, delete. And then what I'm going to do here is rotate it back to full, just so I can have the rotation correct. So it's useful to go into these orthographic view, I think it's called, so we can line it up and make sure it's straight. Just easy to use then. So put it onto this line. You can see that's straight. And then we're going to apply rotation this time, which is basically going to mean this is set the rotation back to 0. Now when we're using local, it's going to be actually following it properly. It's going to be a lot easier to line up with this, which is what we want to do. And we can even copy this like we did earlier. Oh, but this one's just flip this. So that looks about right. And there's a bolt. So I'm going to select the face, cursor to selected. Pick another one of these with Shift D, duplicate, selection to cursor. And that one's in as well. So do we have anything else? So it's not a um, perfectly down. We see that there's a little bit of a ridge to this, which is what we want to work on now. See this ridge? So we're going to come back into this. And it should be simple enough. We'll just select the whole top and bottom face. Could have been easier just to select this, Control I inverse. But yeah, extrude up. Or we should do extrude along normals so they both do it evenly. If we were to extrude up, then the bottom is also coming up, and then we'd have to do it individually. It's always better to make sure they do it at the same time, so we know they're even. Yeah, and scale. So there's the ridge. Be maybe like this. So now we got that ridge. Perfect. A bit more. Cool. Now this one is kind of rounded off. It's beveled, so very simple. Actually, we did this earlier. Just like, or maybe just manually bevel it, so we can control it each corner. Because I think the corners are a little bit more beveled. Faces are like this. So this is the pedal done. This is all basically one mechanism. So, like I said earlier, though, you don't really want to be destructive when you're modeling. So you want to be keeping things separate. It's pretty useful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate it. So yeah, we have a copy of it here, and I'm going to join it by itself. So this one's still individual, but we have one conjoined as well. So we're going to work with this for now. In case we need to make changes later on, it's easier. That's why I do that. So we have a copy now. I'm going to apply it. Just get rid of that. So now we want to basically turn. So look, this one is up, this one's down. So going to, it's going to turn from this point. That's how a bike works. Very simple. Cursor to selected, origin to 3D cursor. Now it's turning from the circle how it should. So, like a bike would be, one's down, one's up. That's good. I suppose a bike would actually be having this. So look, that was a good example then. A bike would have like this, wouldn't it? Be straight. So yeah, very simple again. I'm gonna go to the side view. Alt Z puts it to X-ray mode. It's also, you can click this button here. X-ray mode basically means I can select through the objects. If that wasn't on X-ray mode, maybe you miss one. I don't. It's just easier to make sure you do X-ray mode to get them all. So we're going to line this up with the middle. X-ray mode is useful here, so I can see this dot is a center point. I want to line it up with this blue line, which is the center axis. That makes sure I'm definitely in the middle of the model, like that. So what's next? Do let's do the rope pedal. So rope is pretty easy. You can use a curve for rope. So we're going to get a circle. And this is the curve settings. You can do this. Very useful because when we're lining it up, say like this, the edit mode isn't geometry. Instead, it's a curve as if you're using Adobe Illustrator. I don't know if you've used these before. It's basically like a path. So yeah, very easy to customize. Grab these. And then also another good thing, you can change the depth very easily, like this. So for shapes like this, very useful. Especially rope or, yeah, anything like that, where it's a bit more naturally shaped, organically shaped, I should say. But really, it is pretty easy if you know, like the mechanics of doing it. It's very easy. There's not really much skill other than just knowing. You know what I mean? Like really, all I'm doing is just moving these axes. It's just experience and knowing how to approach certain shapes is the hardest part. This should be a bit thicker. It's out. This one back. So yeah, because we use a curve, we can come back into this and just retroactively scale it up. Very useful. Yeah, we're doing progress. So this is connected up into the bottom with just another square, like very simple again. Boom, 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 square with a bolt on it. Very easy. But again, looking at the whole model, it may be tricky. Yeah, I think you're right. This would definitely not fly. Well, I suppose it depends how hard he's pedaling. We're going to mirror it again along across this z-axis. So there's two of them. It's pretty. So we're going to move the origin to this side, space because it's already on, and that means that this is just going to scale from there. So it's very easy. If it was in the middle, like this, then it's going to come away, which we don't want to happen. It's easier to do it like this. So let me do that again. And then he has a bolt on it, which we can do because we've already modeled one here. Oh, and mirror it across this again. Go. And again, we're going to bevel this. We're just going to only bevel this face, but we want to make sure to apply the scale again. There we go. So yeah, looking good. Made good progress. Uh, the last thing to do really is just put this rope around it. So I'll select all of these, get the origin right in the middle again. So again, because it's rope, it's something organically shaped. This would be really hard to model from a cylinder. We could do it from a cylinder technically. Like you can see, a cylinder could be here, 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 but it's gonna take ages. It is from Clash Royale. That, yeah, I just yoinked a picture from Clash Royale because I think this would be pretty easy one to work on. Just to teach simple shapes. Oh, whoops, curve, circle. Yeah, something that's already 3D. This is definitely a really good reference to use because we can understand every shape from every angle. Whereas 2D drawings, sometimes people draw wrong, or you only have one angle, perspective is wrong. But yeah, 3D reference is really useful if you can get one, whether that's real life or from another game. So yeah, this is really simple. It's just goes round, perfectly circle, like this. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Super simple, but takes time. Turn the resolution, considering it's going in game. What do people usually work on in these streams? I haven't actually attended before. I play Nifty Islands and I've modeled quite a few things in the game, but I didn't know they did streams like this till I was approached a few weeks ago. So yeah, these are lined up, but obviously they're the same, so they intersect, which we don't want. We want bottom one to come over top. So we grab the bottom one, grab these points, and we can scale it out. Very simple, like that. So then we're pretty much at the end point here where it's like just kind of making sure the shape is a bit closer. So we did that. This looks like there's a kind of a, not a bevel, but an insert kind of. So that was basically just a one segment bevel. So when we're beveling, the scroll wheel will determine how many segments you have. So turn it down to one bevel, one segment, like that. So is there anything else? This looks like it's not really the right thickness. So again, we can do the X-ray technique here where we go through, grab it all, and scale that. Whereas if we had no X-ray on and went to select it, see it doesn't select the rest of it. So we'd be messing it up. That's where the seg with the X-ray is really useful. So I noticed that ours is full of rope, whereas this has a bit of gap. So we're gonna move the rope in a bit more, which is again really useful that we have a curve. We can just do that very like that. You should also bring it this way a little bit here. So what other am I noticing? Our bolt is pretty small. So this is another good tip. If we were to scale this, it's gonna do that because it's scaling from the origin point. Whereas if we were to select geometry individually, individual origins, they're all gonna scale from their own origin point. So that's really useful. Them a bit bigger. I separate these so that I can bevel them without them being affected by, without these parts being affected by the bevel. So we get these, bevel, pretty small, just one. And that thing I taught you earlier with this, copy to selected. So cool. It off, which means these need to move. I think that's fine. So we did this in, it's just been 1 hour. Perfect. So yeah, that's 1 hour work. And let me just quickly load up Nifty Island document, which will tell me how many polygons we can have for a drone. I'll see if I need to edit it. 2 seconds. Drone, here we go. So drone maximum is 10,000 triangles. So if you want to know how many triangles your model has, it says it down here. Tries 10,800. So we're a little bit over. So what we're going to do is bring up the wireframe. So this is basically how the model is made. Wireframe. And what we're going to basically focus on here is just thinking which area has basically the densest lines and doesn't really need it. So like this is tiny and has really dense lines. So what I'm going to do here is delete half of them because this does not need as much detail as it has. Really the detail should be in the bigger areas. So we're going to delete all of these edges. Hey, Cantotech, how you doing? So that's good. We still have 400 over, so where else has a lot? This has loads. Because I beveled it too many times, so we're going to delete all of points. Maybe this one. Actually, that one. This one. So now we're only 100 over. Finally, I'm going to get rid of this. Be so dense. But yeah, I'm selecting every other one, and I'm also leaving the one in the middle because if I were to, for example, select two, it's going to ruin the shape. If I were to start from the middle, it's also going to kind of more, it's going to feel more pointy, I think. That's just me. Also, I kind of like to keep the middle so I can find the middle easier later. But it feels less pointy when you do this. Yeah, resolution, true. We can put this down to 5. I feel like the rope is easier to tell though when it's lower. Yeah. Oh, this one's pretty blocky. We can make this a lot lower, but it's below 10,000 now, so that's fine. So yeah, this would be ready for Nifty now. Let me download the file and just show you how to set it up. Example. So we'll get rid of this. What we're going to do is we're going to press A to select every object. F3. Oh, whoops. And then convert it to a mesh. Oh, we have to convert these to mesh. So that turns the curves into meshes. Then we'll convert them all into mesh again, which applies every modifier, which I was talking about earlier. And then Control J makes it all one object. Let me just save this because I want to keep them separate when I texture it later. So I'm going to make a duplicate actually. That'll be better. I'll show you how to set up to be a drone. So we're going to get the drone example quickly. Here it is. And I'm going to make a collection called drone separ. So this is just going to be, so it stays out of our way. Here we go. Just so it's easier to look at. And I'm going to rename this to drone so you know what's what. So we're going to make it the right size. Put them in the middle. I think this would be a good size for the drone. So I'm pretty sure that this core circle thing always stays. So that's really the only thing you have to be wary of. Other than that, drone, empty, core, control P, parent, oh whoops, parent it in. We don't need that. We don't need all these objects because we don't want them. The empty is for nifty. So we'll delete all of these, but keep the core. Ah, so the core came out a bit. I think, pretty sure you have to keep it. I might be wrong though. We'll just scale them up so we can't see it. So now, oh, that time. Let's do that. X-ray, we can see the core. So yeah, that'll be ready to export now. What we'd do is we'd select all of these, file export, GLB, selected objects. Hey Dunda, how you doing, man? Yeah, this will be ready to export once we had it textured. Which I won't do today because yeah, you have to pay for the thing I use to texture, so might be annoying to use for you guys. Also, we'll have to unwrap, but yeah, that's for another day. But there we go. That's how you model.